So, Professor Sohail Inayatullah, you are a very recognized futures researcher and an expert in CLA method, causal layer analysis. And it is, as we know, a method you have been developing, and it is a method that challenges us to understand different layers of assumptions and knowledge creation. So, thank you for this interview. I'd like to ask some more questions about, specific questions about CLA. Actually, can you tell us what was the most important factor that catalyzed your thinking towards critical future studies and in developing CLA?
For me, it was a number of factors. One, I grew up living in many parts of the world. We lived in Geneva, in Indiana, in New York, in Pakistan, Malaysia. So growing up, it was very clear linguistically and worldview, people constructed the world differently. So response one to that is, well, some people are right, some people are wrong. Response two is, if I can understand the different worldviews, I can enrich my understanding of self and other, and I can more effectively do things. Now the second was, I was student with Johan Galton in Hawaii when he was there. And very much he kept on going about this individual level of reality and structural level of reality, direct violence, structural violence. So it very much hit me, okay, here's two different views of things. And there was a speaker, William Irvin Thompson, and he talked about the power of metaphor and mythology. So I started thinking, well, how do you link these different levels of reality? And luckily, through the teachings of P.R. Sirkka, an Indian mystic, he talked about the mind has kosas. They're like layers of reality, so you keep on going deeper and deeper and deeper, and so this notion of depth was there. Then I heard a lovely presentation by Rick Slaughter talk about pop future, problem future, and I thought, okay, this is interesting, if that's his typology. And I started to put together all that, and I said, wait a second, this is a methodology and it's a different way to think about knowledge. So then it was actually in a workshop. We were looking at Bangkok transportation problems. And well, is it you just build more roads, but if you build more roads systemically, you just get more cars? Or if you start to look at the worldview, why do we want bigger cities, and what's the inner story, which is West is best? So then I thought the solution to Bangkok problem at some level is, of course, more roads, but it's also integrated transport. It's also rethinking the nature of the city, the green city, the decentralized city. It's also redoing our relationship with the farm, with agriculture. It's not just that city is best. So just in that workshop, when we were doing this study, he said, oh my God, this is a method.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, okay, now let me play with this. And it developed in real time with practitioners. So the theoretical basis I gave you, but it was over 10 years doing it over and over and learning from every group.
Okay, very interesting. So, and CLA actually helps us to rethink concepts and systems and go beyond. And let's now go directly to the deepest level or level of myths and metaphors that you are using as a layer in CLA.
Yeah.
So actually, on the other hand, they are not self-explanatory in a sense that what myths and metaphors should be used. For example, in Europe, we are all using Western metaphors,
sure,
and which are based on Christian and Greco-Roman ancient metaphors. We all know that, but we are not so familiar with the myths and metaphors used in other cultures. So the question is that would the results of applying CLA method, which uses myths in a certain area, be functional only in this specific area where the myth is also very well known? What do you say about that?
Remember, it's situational. It's locally contextual. So the story comes out based on the context. So if you're running a CLA for a big corporation, you want to know what the story is. With one major ICT corporation in the world, the three general managers didn't understand why they were in competition with each other. And finally we explained to them, in this case it was Fuji Xerox. So their culture was Xerox, but Fuji had bought them out. So then we suggested, your methodology is the Japanese shogunate. So now if you see your company less as ranked Xerox, a British organization, but but more as a Japanese organization.
Yes.
Now you understand what's going on, and they were just in shock.
Yeah.
Suddenly the narrative explained to them a new reality, which before did not make sense.
Yeah, it's a new realization.
And that gives insight, and
Yeah.
it gives better strategy. So given that the terms of the strategy were based on core, let's say, Japanese metaphors, and they were from British metaphors, they had to find a way to merge.
Okay, yes.
So that every CLA process is situationally based.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But also on the other hand, don't you think it's useful or fruitful to learn to use other metaphors, other myths from, let's say, Eskimo culture or something
it's
like
dependent.
That. Even
so say if
yeah.
I was doing a project on futures of policing, then I would want people who knew policing metaphors, but someone outside of policing, because they can add robustness to the metaphorical discussion.
Yes.
So to me, the story comes out in the conversation and the discovery. Like the Singapore government, the Prime Minister's office, they're doing a new project called the Future of Singapore. They've collected all this data. They've organized the data using CLA.
Okay.
So here's the core, here's the litanies, the data.
Yes.
Here's the systemic issues. And they've come out, there's actually different stories based on elderly Singaporeans, young Singaporeans.
Yes.
So now they're starting to map out these core stories.
Okay.
And if they want to use Singapore, how do you either use these stories, understand the stories, or link the stories to strategy?
Yes.
So what they told me, some of the elderly people said, well, young people are a strawberry generation.
Okay.
Very soft.
Yeah.
Where they felt they worked hard.
Yeah.
Now with the metaphorical level, neither metaphor is right or wrong.
Yeah.
So at the literal level, you can have data that's correct or incorrect. But metaphors either speak to you or they don't speak to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So I always ask people, does your story serve your strategy?
Okay.
So I'm not trying to make judgments in a practitioner workshop if the metaphor is correct. I'm trying to help move the organization or the city or the country to a new reality.
Okay.
If I was a PhD researcher, then I would want to make sure I knew the core stories of my stakeholders.
That's right.
So if I was doing a futures of privacy, well, what do the big internet providers say?
Yeah.
What does the security agency say? What do citizens say?
Yeah.
What do civil liberties say? Each one has a core story,
Yeah.
which if I understand it,
Yes.
then I can have a more robust, effective map of the future.
Yes, they must resonate.
Exactly.
So,
So CLA has a mapping function.
yes.
So with some students, when they're doing their PhD, I say, well, in your literature review, you can use CLA as a way to organize information.
Yes, yes, and analyze it through different 4 layers. And when you have this combination of 3 layers, theoretically, could actually CLA pyramid include a 5th layer? Beyond, underneath the myths, if so, what could it be? Could anything go still deeper? For example, an elaborated form of social psychology, evolutionary psychology, or social biology? Or
Everyone I meet wants to have a 5th layer.
I don't want to have, but I'm just
and I ask
asking
especially people who have a spiritual experience.
Yes.
They say, well, the spiritual experience suggests there's something underneath.
Yes.
And I say, I agree with you, except the minute you speak about your spiritual experience, you either enter litany, system, worldview, or
yeah,
metaphor.
it's already integrated there. But
Because the speaking of the experience enters discourse. So if you want to have your spiritual experience, that's a different layer.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about your experience, to communicate it,
then it's already integrated.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, it could be something metaphysical or transcendent layer.
that's ontology.
Yes.
CLA is epistemology.
Yes.
So I have many people saying, here's the future.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. My role, I enjoy more, how do I change the frame to move to a better solution?
Okay. Yeah.
So CLA, one is about mapping, but it's also always about, here's the current future, here's the new future.
Yeah.
So really, the CLA process, you can use it for mapping, or you can use it for transforming.
Okay. Yeah. Having an impact.
Yeah. So here's my current story of my organization. So we were doing a project on cancer futures.
Yes.
And the litany was 50% of people in this one state will have cancer by 2030, because of all the reasons.
Yes.
Systemically, they said it's confused. You get a disease, you don't know what to do. The worldview is medical. And And the story was cancer as a death sentence.
Yeah.
So we had the oncologist, the citizens, the patients, nurses, registrars, ministry. Let's create the new one. The new litany was prevention, biomedicine,
Yeah.
measurements of health.
Yes.
The new system was a one-stop shop. Anyone in our state gets cancer, they know exactly what to do. The worldview was from medical to person and community health.
Okay.
And the new story was cancer's a way of life. You get a little illness, so what? You
Yeah.
deal with it.
It's
We
not-
know how to help. We know
Yeah.
what to do. You have a community. So the new CLA became the new way forward, and then they made from the new CLA their strategic plan.
Okay. Excuse me, where was this feature?
In Victoria.
Okay.
In Victoria,
Very
Australia.
interesting, yeah.
So this became very
Yeah.
powerful with them because the oncologist
Yeah.
listened to the patient.
And changed the attitude
Yes.
towards that. So, what myth would you yourself use in describing our modern techno-deterministic society and society that is still based on continuous materialistic growth? What myth would you choose for
It's man as a machine.
man as a machine?
Yeah. So, and it's very much man, it's not female,
Yeah.
it's not child,
Yeah.
it's the adult
Specifically,
male
yeah.
as machine.
Yes. Okay.
So then I asked myself, okay, what are some other stories?
Okay.
One is Gaian.
Yeah, perhaps Gaia would be, because the other question I would like to continue was, what myth would you choose and use in future's images where more sustainable and responsible society would prevail? Would it be Gaia?
Yeah. And so when I did a presentation last week for how to use new technologies for aging.
Yeah.
We talked about biosensors in the city,
Yes.
biosensors everywhere, but I said the purpose of the biosensors is not surveillance. The purpose of biosensors is to give eyes for Gaia to become alive. So see the technology
Yes.
as you're giving eyes and ears for consciousness to find a way to express.
Okay.
Now, my role as the futurist is not to say this is what it should be,
Yeah.
but here are some new possible
Yes,
stories
open
you can
up.
use wisely.
Yeah, open up.
And people loved it. They said we have meditation people speak, we have materialists speak, but how to integrate both
Yeah.
and to find a new story forward.
Definitely. And then in general, in futures research, currently there are a lot of futures methods and foresight tools available, but not so many theories. So what do you think, what should be done to this situation, or what could be done?
I mean, my sense is the futures field has been heavily theorized. I remember Dater's work in the 60s, decolonizing the future,
Yes.
Galton's work. There's a whole range of major theoretical frameworks we have.
Yes.
So I use predictive, interpretive, critical action learning. There's
Yes.
4 types of research.
Yes.
So I think it's been adequately theorized.
Okay, you think it's
You know, there's so
sufficient,
much
yeah.
rich future. I use the 6 B's approach. People
Yes.
have theories around foresight and futures
Yes.
and social sciences. So the theoretical framework is there. The part that I think we need to keep on working on is when does it work, when does it not work.
That's right, to find appropriate tools for certain specific
Yeah.
cases.
At the point I agree with you, I see many practitioners who are unaware of theory.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So they show up forgetting, like someone says, well, we need to decolonize the future today. I said, well, see, Data wrote about that in 68,
Yeah.
Galtung in 71,
Yes.
Bart van Steenbergen, you know,
Yeah.
and so they keep on inventing a new method. I said, no,
Yeah.
actually,
Already there.
it's been
a
there
lot of
40, 50 years.
theoretical-
Please read it.
That's
It's brilliant.
right. Yeah.
So we can work on it.
Yeah.
So it's people who are in theoretical deficit. So so we want practitioners who are there, who know the theory,
Yes.
as opposed to
Yes.
practitioners who just want to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
We need to have this combination
Yeah,
of
yeah.
knowledge of the theoretical
Yeah, yeah.
frameworks and proper use of tools.
I mean, we can keep on, every time there's a new, you know, like future studies wasn't feminist inspired till the 70s.
That's right.
So when there's a new wave, we integrate it.
That's right.
Environmental movement integrate. We keep on integrating these new worldviews and their theoretical contributions.
Yes.
So I don't see us as, I see us as evolving as the world evolves.
Okay. Then about the substance core issues to tackle in future research. Actually, what is the most relevant question in your view that should be tackled in academic future research? In other words, what kind of research gaps do you see in futures research as topics?
I know, well for me, like I said, I'm biased towards epistemology.
Yes.
So with my PhD students, I said whatever you do with the content of what you write, I want to preface, which is your story. So don't give me content without what's called being epistemologically clean.
Okay.
Here's my narrative, here's my story.
Yes.
So if you, in the preface, if you tell me, here are the 3 big stories that have made your life, then when you do the textual work, that textual work has context. It has meaning, it has purpose.
Okay.
So that's what I try to get.
Yeah.
So in my own life, my first phase was, my metaphor was Johnny Appleseed. You give talks everywhere, workshops everywhere,
Yeah.
see what sprouts.
Okay.
And so my own professor Data, he said, it's a hypothesis, test it.
Yes.
You sprout a seed, give a talk.
Yeah.
Now phase 2 of my life has been nurturing the seeds.
Okay.
So now I love going back to cities or states or organizations. Say, okay, we've been doing this 10 years, what's working?
Okay.
How do we support the champions?
Yes. To follow up and to see
Yeah.
in concrete terms.
So I give that as an example. I need to be aware of my own practice, my own theory, and be self-reflective.
Okay.
And so then I want academics, people who work with me, to be equally reflective.
Okay.
To
Yes.
not pretend they're objective.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
to be aware of their subjectivity. And then once we know our subjectivity, we can meaningfully talk about what's good.
Okay.
But without that, then it's just,
Yeah.
I get bored very quickly.
Okay. Okay.
Then it's just the future of talk.
That's right.
Robots in 2050.
That's right. Okay, let's now move on to discuss a little bit about the future of cities, because we
Sure.
both
Yeah.
share this interest and we have research projects on
Yeah.
the future of cities. And could you mention some examples how cities could be made more livable and exciting or inspiring than today? Of course, there is a lot of the talk and debate and research that we have to make cities sustainable and energy efficient, etc. But how to make them more livable,
Yeah.
inspiring places to live?
I mean, again, it's situational.
Mm.
So I've done workshops in, I think, at least 10 cities, what's called 2020, 2030 workshops, where you take counselors, citizens, professional staff, and start a process of imagining 2030. You know, what are the scenarios of the city? What's your preferred vision? What's the backhouse? So within that context of their local knowledge, they say, okay, we need to do X, Y, Z. So it would change based on different cities.
Yes.
A city, in one city may need better sanitation for livability.
Yes.
Another city may need better artwork.
Okay.
A third city may need a better digital strategy. So my insight is, if you only work with politicians, it falls apart. But
That's right.
if I only work with citizens, it also falls apart.
There's
because
no structure.
Yeah,
No,
and
yeah.
politicians sabotage.
Yeah.
We had one city foresight project, brilliant,
Yeah.
but citizens loved it, staff loved it.
Yes.
Then one of the politicians said, okay, that's going to be tabled as Proposition 110, but it won't be budgeted.
Okay.
So then we learned,
Yeah.
ensure the political leaders budget it,
Yes.
ensure citizens feel empowered,
Yes.
ensure the architects, the professionals can bring their best ideas.
Okay, so it's a combination of taking all stakeholders
Yes.
into the same
Yeah,
discussion.
and they have
debate
resistance,
and
yeah.
futures.
And then,
Yeah.
then I can ask, okay,
Yeah.
given your reality, your history, what would livability mean for you?
Yeah, yeah, it's again situation.
So I, in some ways they could be,
Yeah.
well, we need more biosensing.
Yeah.
In others could be more trees, better
Yeah.
water.
Yeah,
We need to get rid of
Yeah.
one city I was working now with 10 years. 10 years ago we did their 2025 vision. And there were managers in the back room and they said, oh yeah, it will never happen.
yeah.
10 years later it's happened.
Okay.
So now they asked me to come back and do the next 10 years.
Okay.
And one of the managers was the same one 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he rolled his eyes, he did this.
Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
don't you remember 10 years ago you said
Okay.
that? And he said, yeah.
Yeah.
And you've created it. And everyone said,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
We have this vision, it's happened.
Okay.
And now they want to go further. So
Yeah.
that cycle of learning is what's exciting. Because otherwise people lose hope, we become cynical, nothing will happen.
That's right. You have to have dreams and visions, but on the
Yes.
other hand, you have to have structure and tools to
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
But then I still insist it is contextual, situational, what is needed
Sure.
and what is preferred or what is most livable.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have like the concept of biomimicry,
Yes.
the concept of simulating nature's process and structures. Do you think that biomimicry could be important and interesting way of developing
Yeah,
cities?
brilliant. I mean, your point is, okay, we have local situational, but how do we get the big innovations come when we get 100 mayors together?
Yeah.
So we had one meeting, we had about 150 mayors, 250 CEOs, senior planners. We had 500 people in one room thinking about the cities 20 years from now.
Yes.
So the power of that was, doesn't matter your local situation, sustainability, livability, biomimicry, 3D printing, climate change, they'll all be important. How will you deal with it? How will you address it?
Yes.
So I think your point is good.
Okay.
There's some issues that are global, and they have to be addressed. Otherwise, if it's too local, then you can have your local area green, but everything around you is dying.
Okay.
That doesn't work either. So yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then
So it's that back and forth. Here's the global issues. But I want to how to get the global issues relevant. I mean, I had some mayors. I was presenting to them, and they looked at me. They said, "We've never heard of that."
Yeah.
And they said, and there was this whole discussion where futures seem too far. So I had to take them on a journey where that distance was reduced.
Okay.
And then one of the mayors or the leaders, he said afterwards, he said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "What?" He said, "If you want this work to succeed, there's one secret." I said, "What's the secret?" He said, "You have to help them get re-elected. Your vision of 2030 must be linked to their re-election strategy. Otherwise, they'll smile. They'll say it's brilliant, but when it comes to budget time, they're going to vote on things that citizens...
They are not committed to this.
So make sure, if you want a biomimicry strategy, it's linked to their 2020 election plan. So this was new to me. I mean, it's obvious, but for me, it was, oh my God. So it's a learning process.
Okay, it's a learning process, and also I think that ignorance and denial, for example, of global challenges, are the two most dangerous risks.
I mean, if you agree, I mean, you work with cities. Cities have more power sometimes than nation states.
Yes,
the population size,
actually.
you can innovate in futures, you can get change.
That's right. Cities are like nations.
Yeah, I find nation states, those projects are very difficult. Local projects are fun, but they don't influence. At the city level, you can have huge influence.
Cities are powerful. So let's go deeper to the question of technology still, and especially in the relation of humans and technology. In your view, what are the most relevant ethical questions in symbiotic life between humans and technology? Because we are trying more and more to make a merge between humans and technology with artificial intelligence and human intelligence, etc. But from the ethical point of view, what do you consider to be the most critical question or issue in this symbiotic life?
I know when I was in Hawaii Judiciary, I was in my 20s.
Okay, yes.
And we were looking at emerging issues. And our research paper we did in the 1980s was on the legal rights of robots.
Yes, yes.
And so that was one of our first pieces. We were saying, what would happen if AI became intelligent? What would the courts look like? And if a robot injured a worker, who's liable? The company, the worker, or would someone argue the robot is liable?
And punish the robot.
So there's a whole range of legal dimensions. Now the ethical part, certainly, I would almost say it's metaphorical. I know that sounds strange, but every culture or organization, they have different core stories around new technologies. If your story is new technologies are evil, there's Eden, which is nature and humans, then new technologies are unethical. If your story is humanity is evolving, learning, and the technologies are not the other, but they're part of what it means being sentient, then ethics looks different. So I don't have a one ethical solution. It's, to me, again, civilizationally contextual. So Buddhism, spiritual perspectives, they would have more space for symbiosis. If you take the traditional view, man-centered and nature around man, then the new technologies are scary. So I think it's, again, I would use a CLA on it.
Okay.
How would I unpack the different views of ethics and culture?
Okay.
And then based on that, I would negotiate, is there a view that people who don't like new technologies, what do they need for us to use technologies wisely?
Yes.
Is there a way forward? Or we'd say, well, no, we have to do precautionary principle.
Yeah.
Is a possible impact on the way we know our world so strong that we should be very careful?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one is an ethical around culture. The second is the second-hand, third-hand implications.
That's right.
If they're too dangerous, then certainly I would want global rules and regulations. And so this space is good. That space, whether it's ethical or unethical, we know the potential implications are so deep, we should be wise.
Okay.
So that's how I see it.
Yeah. At the same time, we have to look at the existence and emergence of technologies as such, and on the other hand, look at the use and how we apply technology for good and bad, because it's always there. It's humans who make decisions how they.
I was teaching a course once, and one of the managers, she said, "Can you please give me a good app for meditation?"
Okay.
You know.
That's
so
right.
Can you recommend a good iPhone app so I can meditate?
Yeah.
And I said, okay. Yeah. Here's some I recommend.
Yeah. There are actually.
Yeah, there's some good apps. So her question, her question wasn't. You know, I mean, she was open to learning meditation, but she wanted to make sure that the way she learns is app-based.
Yes.
So I had to provide an answer that fit her worldview.
Yeah.
That made intelligibility possible.
Then she felt comfortable.
Yeah,
There was a tool through which, and the result may be very good, even though you don't need any applications. So she was asking me to be knowledge navigator. Yes.
So in a way, futurists, I feel we're that. We're human knowledge culture navigators.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
We need to map and give a sense of direction, but I don't feel we're the ones who should be showing, here's where you need to go. I think that's too strong. Some of my colleagues said, no, we're prophets.
Okay.
But I feel like, no, there's multiple futures. How can you be a prophet?
Yeah.
The prophet says one future.
Yes.
We're there to map, open up space. But also, you know, we have preferred futures. You want livability. I understand that.
Yeah.
So we have the right to say, here's what I love.
That's right.
And here's why.
Yeah.
As opposed to here's what will happen.
Yeah.
That's what I don't think we should be in that business.
And it applies to the predictions and prophecies in the ancient world.
Yes.
They had the same interest in the future, but they were looking at one future. And we have several futures where we want to evaluate which is possible, probable, and preferred.
And we can navigate. We can help people navigate. That's our core skill set.
That's right.
That's very important now, especially.
It's one competence and skills that we futurists actually have a responsibility to teach. But actually each single person can teach, learn these skills and become a navigator himself or herself. Then a question about digitalization and media. And what is in your opinion, because nowadays we are looking at trying to identify weak signals for everything.
Sure.
What is the most interesting weak signal that you would identify for the development of digitalization and especially digital media? Because media is now like internet is everywhere, media is everywhere and getting actually a lot of power. What kind of new?
I mean, I know, I wrote a piece 15 years ago called Ecobots. Ecobots and health bots. The notion was anytime you looked at anything, you would get full information on it. So if I looked at pizza, it would tell me how many calories. It would go, signal would go to my insurer, my doctor. So I would have real-time information on my consumption on the environment, my consumption on my health, my consumption on others. But that was a crazy idea 15 years ago.
Yes, but now
it's already here. There's so many apps.
Yeah.
So more and more real-time information on my actions, their implications for my health, your health, global health.
Yeah.
So all digitalization that helps us with better real-time long-term implications.
Yes.
So we can be wiser.
Yeah.
So someone says, well, smoking is not bad. I said, yeah, but now this app tells you actually you're going to lose 15 years of your life. So you won't see your children. It's not 100%, but you have a real-time probability. So digitalization that helps us with wiser consumption, and then of course even better, smarter production.
Yes, yes.
So that's the way. That's
to the beginning of
yeah.
production cycles, and this is this idea is of course amplified when we are having this Internet of Things and big data.
Yeah.
So what kind of systemic changes do you anticipate in knowledge creation and innovation when we have big data available and Internet of Things is everywhere? It's not yet everywhere. But
well, it's back to our role as futurists. In a world where there's so much connection information, who does the knowledge navigation?
Yes.
You know, there's always been a role for people who could, okay, how do you, as you get more data information for litany and system.
Yes.
Right now we have data for litany, we're now developing data for system. Then the futures becomes the worldview and the myth level.
Yes.
We become the storytellers, we understand the multiple worldviews, we navigate.
Yes.
So this to me is a relief. I don't have to do litany and system anymore.
Okay.
I can go towards the real purpose.
That's right.
So the Internet of Things in that sense is really important.
Okay.
If I was working in policing, of course I'd be very nervous about security.
Yes.
Security, privacy,
yes,
safety, the whole dark side of things.
Two sides of the same coin.
And then the policing groups I work with, if you know Ron Noble, head of Interpol, he said Interpol's always years behind. So for all my policing projects, how to help international policing catch up to the future and actually be ahead of the game.
Yes, and tackle crime, all that kind of threats.
Yeah, yeah.
But then one final question. What has given you the most satisfaction personally in future studies during your long career as futurist? Success story.
Okay, I'll give you
personally.
I mean, this was just a few weeks ago. This is I won't give you his name, but we did the CLA on his life story, and so he had a particular life story. He said, "My life is like being in a labyrinth, in a maze.
Yes.
It's very difficult." He says, "So he just got his PhD, so his first job they moved him very quickly, so he became Icarus. He flew too high, and he said the program collapsed. And so when we worked with him, he found his new story, which is dataless. Knowing the future, not flying too high, not flying too low.
Okay.
So the personal satisfaction is, oh my God.
Yes.
Now I can make sense of my own life story and be happier.
Yeah.
So anytime, any futures project, whether any methodology, where suddenly someone gets some insight, and that makes a difference in their life.
Yeah. Actually, you were a catalyst for this kind
it's
of
great. They come and say, thank you, I now understand the next phase of my life better.
Yes.
I understand my purpose better.
Yeah.
It's okay, now it makes sense.
Okay.
So that moment of insight,
yes.
and when organizations get that, it's okay, we're going to try this, we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's the best reward you
Yeah,
can have.
Or when I was with that city, 10 years later, I said, oh my God, you're right. That workshop in 2004, we accomplished these things.
Yeah.
And then citizens are happy, they're happy.
Yeah.
And then, because of that, they're willing to push further.
Okay.
So that makes my day.
Okay, good. So thank you very much,
Thank you, Sirkka.
Sohail, for this interview.
My pleasure.